says that strategy is a ploy whereby you want to confuse or disorient or send your competitors off in a different direction. So he is taking strategy from all sinister point of view. But in the manual on page 12 and 13, I've given you a list of definitions from a variety of people, all of which seem to say the same thing, that strategy is long-term. Now, you know and I know there's no such thing as long-term anymore. You can think long-term, but we don't know where the long will be in that term. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it next month? So a lot of the thinking on strategy from people like Johnson and Scholes, Quinn, Sun Tzu, Napoleon, Churchill, I think today we've got to be agile and flexible and fast in our strategy and the way it's delivered. The only one of these authors that I really think has made a difference is Kenichio Mei's a Japanese management guru, page 14 in the manual. And Kenichio Mei, he says, look, actually, it's a state of mind. And if you take that expression as it being a state of mind, and you look at Paul Pullman's explanation of strategy through Unilever, then the state of mind and living the strategy is the same thing. Now, this is quite revolutionary because all the original books on strategy and strategic management, people like Mintzberg and Quinn together, Quinn on his own, all gave us an impression that people would sit down and plan their strategy for the future. And indeed, that still happens. During the last break in the pandemic, during the when MCO was lifted, I did a management retreat up in Guangdong, in one of the beach hotels there for a bank locally, to do a strategic review, to do a strategic alignment, to be able to look at what's happening to the bank as performance is going down in the industry, to find out how we can realign our business for the future, to look for profit over the next 2 years. And that was the strategy for the future. Now, that strategy is being lived. And when will be the next strategic review? Probably in a year's time. So the way that I see it, it's a big word, it means a lot, but it has to be understood. I've given you examples of strategic thinkers on page 15 in the manual. People like Theodore Levitt, people like Tom Peters, people like Marvin Bauer of McKinsey. And all I really want you to do is to be aware of these names when you do your keyword search. So you'll know that these are names that are people that have made a key contribution. Because the problem that you have, and the problem that I understand that you will have, is that if you take a topic like strategy, and you take a theme like strategic analysis, and you do a keyword search, and you go into Google Scholar, and you come out with a long list of citations, which starts to look like spaghetti, you don't know one end from another, because this is not your field. You are learning about it. You're not studied in this area. You don't have any conventional wisdom in this area. So that is why in the early part of this manual, I've listed maybe 20, 30 authors that I would commend to you. And I have my own favorites. You know, I like Mintzberg, I like Edgar Schein, I like the work of Alfred Sloan. Porter has made a wonderful contribution, but guys has become so cliche that everyone knows about it. Porter's five forces are even being taught in schools. You know, so what I want you to do is to get your head around it and to get attached to a few authors that you feel made a good contribution. Now, I was involved with one of my banking clients here in Malaysia, you know, last week, in having to put together a new proposal for the board on the strategic development for digital transformation again. It's something I'm heavily involved with. And I was asked, could you prepare the strategy paper? And I said, yes, by all means. But there are two levels of strategy. In fact, there are three levels of strategy, but let's just deal with the two levels. There's corporate level strategy, and there's operational strategy. So I will produce the corporate level strategy paper. I will need internal discussions over Zoom or whatever to get your operational strategy put together. And then what your job is to do is to make sure at individual level that it will stick. Because otherwise, the corporate level strategy is high level, board level. It does not cascade down to operational level, to middle management level. And individuals don't have a sense of ownership. So where I'm coming from, I feel that strategy needs to be understood. It needs to be implemented. The change needs to happen. You need institutional buy-in and individual buy-in. It needs to happen at both levels. And that's something that is very rarely, not properly, understood. So I want to just reinforce the work of Mintzberg because I really do like his work. By moving to page 18, you know, in the manual, to pick out Mintzberg's 5Ps, or his 5P plan. And you can find this on YouTube as well. And I think this is something that will help you to get an understanding for your assignment. So what Mintzberg is saying is that strategy is a course of action. It's the direction that we're going to take. It's the journey that we're going to take. And it can be simply summarized as a plan. But our competitive strategies are much more like ploys to outwit our enemy, to outwit our competition. But guys, if you are working on ploy rather than plan, it's very tiring because you've constantly got to be coming up with new maneuvers because people catch up very quickly. So that's a very tiring thing to do. But what he's also said is that strategy is a pattern. It's a particular formula that we use. Now, if we have a look at this program, you know, which is an MBA for executives, which I designed for London School of Commerce 10 years ago, it's a pattern. You know, the attendance, the deliverables, the assignment cycle, the whole thing end to end is a global pattern that is employed throughout all the campus locations. So you could technically leave and go to Sri Lanka, go to London, you know, go to Bangladesh, wherever, to find the same content. It may be different people delivering. But that's quite useful because that's part of the simplicity of the business model of London School of Commerce. It falls into an established pattern. Now, for me, patterns are very important. Patterns are more important than plans because patterns are laid down and they are there almost like patents because you follow that specific formula. If it's working, if it's a winning formula, then why change it? Now, it also has its dangers because you might say, well, it's time to change the formula. Or our competitors are challenging that formula. Or our competitors are trying to replicate that formula. Well, let them try till they have the competitive edge. And that what Mintzberg is also saying is it's all to do with getting a position, a place to be achieved. And I've mentioned that. Or a stance that you want to take. Now, Unilever with Paul Pullman, he's taking a stance on contributing towards saving the planet to be able to improve people's lives all over the world through a very large organization. So these are high-level touch points that you should be, pretty much aware of. Okay, so let's move, therefore, into something very practical and something that you can, genuinely take home and start to think about using. And this is to start thinking about strategic planning. Are there basic questions that we need to deal with in our strategic planning? And the answer to that is yes. There are 6 important questions that need to be answered when we prepare a strategic plan. These are street-level questions. They can be understood by anybody, your friends, your relatives, your in-laws, your outlaws, anybody can understand these questions. Now, what I like about these questions, even though you might not be on an MBA program, but you have a friend, and that friend wants to start a new business. And they want to open, something to bring in some extra income. I've got a lot of friends in Malaysia here, and I'm very fortunate to have been given my PR status by Dr. Mahathir when he was Prime Minister here originally. So I can stay in here forever should I wish to, despite COVID. But I often get asked to help these small businesses. And there was one family that said, my daughter has lost her job. And I don't think she's going to get another job. Can you help her? So I said, well, I've got no work for her either. But what is she interested in? She said she's interested in food. I said, there are so many people that are producing kueh, they're producing cookies, they're producing nasi lemak, etc., etc. Everyone's at it because it's one way of making money. But what's she interested in? She said, well, she likes food, but she thinks she can sell sandwiches. And I thought, oh yes, I've been through this exact same scenario in Singapore however many years ago, where there's no market for sandwiches because people don't like sandwiches, they like local food. Anyway, I said, yes, by all means, I can help her. I can just spend, 30 minutes, over the phone and help her. And what I did was to go through these 6 questions here on page 19. And said to you, so where are you now? I'm unemployed. And where have you come from? Nowhere in particular, because previously I wasn't employed. So I'm now in limbo. That's where I am now. I don't know what I can do, but I need to earn. So where do you want to be and by when? I'd like to be in meaningful employment as soon as possible. So how are you going to get there? I want to sell sandwiches. I didn't ask why. I said, okay. So how are we going to get there? Which way is best? How are we going to ensure arrival? What are the expected outcomes? She said, I don't know which way is best. I don't know how I'm going to get there. That's where I need your help. So I concentrated, on question 3, question 4. I said, okay, why don't you think about the sandwiches that you want to produce? Are they going to be boxed? Are they going to be in a bag? What flavor are they going to be? Are they going to be chicken, cheese? Think about a simple menu. Think about the production. And then we'll set up a pilot project whereby you simply target a few buildings. We put something into an online through social media, where I think we should use Facebook. And let's take a pilot project. In the first week, I think they sold something like 20 sandwiches, which is actually quite good. Today, they're selling between 300 and 500 boxes of sandwiches a day, only by using these questions. But, of course, being intelligent about the answers. I'm just sharing this with you. You can use, if you've got friends that are having difficulties, having problems, etc. I have some friends in London at the moment because the job market is pretty bad. So where are they now? Unemployed. Where have they come from? Either graduates with no jobs or from a position of unemployment. Where do they want to be employed soon? How are they going to get there? Well, what is beginning to happen is that people are writing CVs, covering letters. They send out 800 and nothing comes back. And I said to them, look, it's not going to work. You need the market to come to you, not you go looking for a job in the market. Because it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. We've got to get the employer to come to you. How is that going to happen? Very easily. Look for a headhunting organization that specializes in your desired industry. So if you're an unemployed graduate and this is your first job, there are headhunters in London that specialize in first job placements, either internships, training schemes, or first jobs. Really? Yes, really. That's how you're going to get there. Go and search. Now, you need a good CV. Let me see your CV. My goodness me. This is like CVs used to look like 30 years ago. Let me create the CV for you, something entirely different, because most CVs are about your experience, about your credentials, about your performance, about your results, about your qualifications. It's boring. They want to know about you. So why don't you do a small survey and find out what people like about you? What are the qualities that people value in you? As your study friends, as your school friends, as your colleagues. Send out WhatsApp questionnaire, simple question. These are selling points. Now, what do you believe about yourself? Let's build your brand. Let's put all of this into a CV. I created a completely new format for the CV. I said, okay, now we have it. I need to make sure it's looking really professional. So we need to find a graphics art company or a professional company to make sure this really looks wow. So I contacted a company in America that specializes in CV design for different industries. Get a template, you pay for it, not a lot, but 30, 40 pounds. Everything is done. I got a call last night or on my phone from one particular guy. He said, I've been looking for a job for nearly 2 years. I've now got an interview. You see, how might we get there? You're looking for a job. Now get the market to come to you. Find the people that have got the networks. Because you know, and I know, without network, you're not going to get a job. So you've got to find people that have the network, and the headhunting agencies have the network. So again, using the 6 basic questions. So you can take this home tonight and think about your situation and hopefully start thinking out of the box so that you do ensure arrival. Now, this is the high-level picture. If we want to start drilling down here on page 20, I've given you a roadmap of the essential steps of building up the strategic plan. Doing your environmental review, stating your assumptions, assessing your resources, not at the end, but up front, setting the timescales and the objectives, reviewing the resources again. That competency and capacity question must always play in your mind. And then thinking not about the strategy, but think about the choices that you have. You know, the choices, we use headhunting agencies, we advertise, you've got options. So what are the choices? Then those choices need to be evaluated against criteria. So you know which way is best. So you have a strategic route that is chosen. Now, something that I want to build into this question is how do we ensure arrival? Now, something that I feel quite strongly about, and I want to share with you, because we can come up with wonderful ideas, but the implementation is always the problem. The execution is where it all falls down. And a lot of strategy doesn't work because of this problem. How do we ensure arrival now? What is beginning to happen, from my experience, is that the regulatory environment, the need for compliance, is building up industry by industry, so much so that good governance is the only way ahead. So therefore, how do we ensure arrival? Through policies, procedures, and methods. And governance framework needs to be in place. I was asked 2 days ago to have a look at a governance structure for a university in relation to appeals, grievances, complaints, etc. And I've done that. But my initial impression was that the documentation that I have a copy of, which goes on to about 42 pages, I said, it's very complex and it's very robust and it's very turgid. But I think you've done the right thing. Because if people realize this is how difficult it is to follow a grievance procedure, they're not going to grieve. If the policies are laid down in such a way that these are the steps that people are going to take, they'll think 10 times before going about it. If you make your policy statement too opaque, then people will take you for a ride. That was my take on it. So now, maybe in a different situation, I would be more flexible. But all I want to share with you is this. In putting together a strategic plan, the governance of that plan is critically important. The governance of process, the governance of technology, the governance of performance through KRAs and KPIs. So when you put together your proposals for the university, don't forget governance is terribly important. I just share with you, because this is how I lead my life. The strategic plan that I put together for the hospital, you have this template. This has become a way of life, but I want to make sure that my strategic plans are unique, that they are different, and that people will call me back again with the team. So what I do today, which I've done probably over the last 3 to 5 years, is to still have these questions in place. And I go back to which way is best and how do we ensure arrival. These two questions. And what I do is to build up a strategic plan based on pillars. And I find that this works very well. With the hospital just very recently, it took around about 4.5, 5 months to finish the whole project. And we spent all of our time on Zoom board meetings. The previous plans that I put together for them were good enough, they're good roadmaps, etc. But I decided that we need to take a fresh approach. So I built the strategic plan around pillars. And these are the pillars I just share with you. People, process, technology, infrastructure, performance, and governance. 6 pillars. So my entire strategic plan has been based on those 6 pillars, for which we set our objectives and our strategies and our controls and our KPIs, etc. All of that's done around the 6 pillars. Initially, the board didn't like it, but now it's all they want to talk about because everything goes back to the 6 pillars. So why did I do this? Because I want the board and the entire organization to live those pillars. I need to live for them to live the strategy, not for it to be in a plan that gathers dust for the next 4 years until we do it all over again. So were we to look at your question and we have a look at these steps that we're taking, I would ask seriously, can we even arrange this into pillars? I've done this quite a few times and it works. Everyone's totally happy and blown away because they've not seen it before. And that's what we have to do as well. As a strategist, you have to start thinking about that new ideas. So I'm just sharing that with you. But these questions are important. Okay, so let's move on a little bit further. And let's get into this subject called strategic management. So to help you to understand the subject of strategic management, which is really what you're here for this weekend. This was a model which I put together 10 years ago. And I think it helps you to understand the subject and also understand what the whole business of strategic management is about, and helps you with your mindset and your thinking patterns and so on. Now, where did it come from? At that time, I was running an international diploma for Cambridge. And it was an amazingly successful program. We run it here in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka, throughout the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and so on, for about 5 years. And then there was a change of policy, whereby the new Vice Chancellor came in and said they want to pull all of this in-house. So, they pulled the plug and gave us 18 months notice, and that was the end of it. But this model worked very well for me. And I think this will help you to get your head around this whole subject of strategic management. So, yeah, how does it work? Okay. The thinking behind strategic management and behind those questions, is what and who is driving change. What and who is driving change. And this is the environment that we're living in now, with a massive amount of disruption and disenablement. So where does that come from? From two sources. The internal environment within inside the organization, its culture, its people, its leadership, its stakeholders. And then externally, we need to go into the external marketplace. Now, the gentleman that asked a question a while back, can I use pestle analysis? This is where you use your pestle analysis. You use your pestle analysis for your external environmental analysis. Because the pestle analysis is coming down to political, economic, social, legal, ecological, technological, etc., etc. You can use that framework, but guys, I've never used it commercially because it's cliche. And if I ever saw it coming in by any of them proposing or fermenting, I would probably ask them to go back and think again. Now, you can use pestle analysis, but keep it in your top drawer, your bottom drawer, etc. What is important is not pestle. What is important is the outcome, is the interpretation of pestle. Now, what pestle produces is a summarized analysis of the opportunities that are there and the threats that you have to face. The internal environment produces your strengths and weaknesses. So what we've got here in this outer ring of these red ovals is like a SWOT analysis, SW on one side, OT on the other. Now, I don't like SWOT analysis because it's cliche, and the people that do it may take a view through rose-tinted glasses, and they may actually take a biased view. What I need to do to understand drivers for change is this. Inside the internal and external environment, number one, what are the issues and challenges? Number two, what are the real pain points? Number three, where are the priorities for change? That's what I use commercially. So I know all about SWOT analysis and pestle as you do, but I don't use it because it's not language that we want to be able to live with. So I always work with this. What are the issues and challenges that we are facing? Yeah. What are the pain points? Where are the priorities? That is what I use all the time. In working on this digital transformation project, this Japanese oil company for almost 18 months now, working with these people, that's language that they can understand. But the most recent project that we're working with prior to the lockdown is this. Get the procurement department together and ask them what are the pain points that they're currently facing in the existing non-digital environment. Everything's analog. Putting together tenders and goodness knows what takes forever. Paperwork goes missing, time delays, all sorts of. And I asked them to write down these pain points. Let's get them onto a big flip chart, which we did. 2 days. Okay, so there is the mess that you guys are living in. Let's work out the real issues, which we did, from the pain points. Where are the priorities for action? Get them down to 5. These become your drivers for change. Now, after a while, this becomes a mindset. Because if you could identify or get the people to identify their pain points as a consultant, you're already getting their buy-in, already getting their commitment, their ownership, because it's their pain. What you're trying to do is to paint a picture of how you can get through that pain barrier and move into a new future by taking first steps. I need people to care about this environmental analysis, and the only way I can get them to care about it is to identify the challenge and issue that they have, that they do genuinely care about, because if they care about, it will drive them into doing something. And when something happens, you start to discover. And after you discover, you become enlightened. And then everyone's a happy bunny. So this is my approach to strategy and to strategic management. If you look at the diagram, it doesn't mean anything. It's only by me explaining to you how I use it, you can see how this works. So issues, challenges, priorities, driven from pain points, perhaps, or not, both ways. Now, the drivers for change are extracted from the strategic priorities, and I call these strategic thrusts. So the drivers for change are thrusting into the strategic development of the organization. Now, all the stuff in the middle, the meat in the sandwich, setting the strategic direction, our vision, mission, core values, and objectives, setting up our strategy or strategic determination by looking at the choices that we have, the options that we have, and then setting up the criteria for evaluation in terms of how we can judge them in order to make a choice. Now, I think as a result of exposure over the years, I've come to realize that this thinking is okay, but it misses something very, very important. Because if you read the journals and you read the books, you'll come to the conclusion that a lot of strategy doesn't work. It gets stuck. It stalls. Excuse me. So I put in this extra stage in my model, the critical factors for success. Now, what are these? It goes like this. What are the issues and challenges and priorities that we're going to face that will drive change? What is the vision for the future? What do we have to do? Which is the way ahead, etc., etc. Now, as a result of seeing things that don't work very well, I came to realize a very important question. What do we have to do really well to fail? And I realized that that's a very important question. Sometimes clients will laugh. It's an emotional discharge. I said, no, I'm serious. I want to know, we put all of this effort in, we're going to set up the strategic plan. We need to understand how it could fail. So if I get you guys to agree on the critical failure factors, we work out what the critical success factors are. Now, what are the critical success factors? These are the essential conditions that must prevail for the strategy to work. These are the essential conditions that must prevail for the strategy to work. Internally, externally. and interactively between your frontline staff and your key customer and key stakeholder groups. Then we've got some new thinking. And I found that by highlighting failure factors and identifying success factors, that the strategy tends not to fail. For two reasons. One, once it's identified, the decision makers will say, well, if we need this in place, resources in place, structures in place, people in place, processes in place, technology in place, and so on and so forth, it's too much for us to take on. We're not going to do it. Or, as in the case of the Japanese that I was mentioning to you, if this is what we need a budget. Let's get Tokyo to approve the budget, then we can move ahead, you see. And everything so far has gone very, very well. So I like this question a lot. Not asking people what are the critical success factors, because they tell you all sorts of nonsense. You know, the price has got to be right. You know, the distribution channels. No. I want to know, what do we need to do internally, externally, interactively to fail in this business? One of the first consultancy jobs that I did in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, was for a company called Utopia Air. It's an air conditioning company, small to medium-sized enterprise, employing about 200 to 300 people with offices in Singapore, Taiwan, and Thailand. First job. I also then said, you know, the business is not doing very well. And I said, what is it that you're doing to cause failure in your organization? And they didn't know what I meant. And I was staying in a hotel. So first thing in the morning, 9 o'clock, I call the office. Nobody picks up. 9:15, I call the office. Somebody picks up and I said, I need to speak to Jeremy, please. Oh, he's outstation. Can I leave a message? The people, I don't know, all sorts of nonsense. So I tested this for about 3 days, you know, with mystery callers, etc., etc. And I said to the CEO, his name was Jeremy, what is killing your business is your first point of contact. Your receptionist is lousy. There's no 3-ring policy, etc., etc., etc. Tone of voice is not there. It's not customer centric. They can't care less. And he said, it's a big problem because she's my niece. This is family. So I said, well, I hope we're going to find something for your niece to do. Maybe she can manage the company's library, but keep her away from your customers. Maybe she has a boyfriend, encourage her to get married. You know, we've got to get rid of her. He said, you know, come all the way from the UK to tell me I've got to get rid of my niece. What am I going to talk to the family because she needs a job? I said, we can give her a job, but not in the front line of your business. This is a critical factor for failure in so many enterprises where people at the front end, at the customer-facing end of a business, are the most junior, the most lowly paid, and the most lowly motivated. It kills your business. It kills your strategy. So he took my advice. We gave her promotion to take care of internal mail, and she was very happy because she got more money. Get her away from customers. Yeah, these are simple things, but I'm just telling you, turning the clock back to 1986, that was one of the first things that I did. This is how business fails. So if we know what we have to do to fail, we make sure it ain't gonna happen. So now our choices, our strategy options are screened by financial and non-financial criteria for evaluation. You then assess what it is that we need to do to ensure that we don't fail, meaning what are the essential conditions that must prevail for this strategy to work? And you go through this screening procedure to say, okay, this is the way ahead. This is the choice that we have to make. So that is a mindset. That's a process. I mean, for example, I've been working on a project now for an online company, and I've been going through various things with them at the moment. But what I said to them today, because we had a meeting earlier on today, I said, is there a welcome pack? And they said, what's that? They said, well, if you're going to get people to sign up, for your business, how are you going to onboard your customers? Have you got something in place to know your customer? Have you got something in place to welcome them and tell them what the next steps are, et cetera, et cetera? No, we don't. And you need that. Can you do that? Yes. So I'm in my study at the moment. On my right-hand side, that is my job for Monday, to design a welcome pack. Now, why? Because I want to make sure that the customers, or my client, are feeling good. They feel welcome. And then we'll get the CEO to put it into a video and so on. So they feel that there's a human touch, there's a personal touch. This is what business is about today. Otherwise, you'll fail. So that's in place. And now the hard part is the strategy implementation and control, which needs project management and performance management to ensure that everything gets converted into something which is measurable and can be reported on. So you need metrics, measuring tools, and systems. And then the most difficult thing of all is to get people to own this change. But if in my internal analysis and maybe my stakeholder analysis, I've been able to identify the pain points, and now this is the vision for the future, and these are the steps that we're going to take, I'm not going to have much resistance. So managing change, one thing. Changing is quite something else, about accepting, adapting, adopting, and accelerating through the future. So the final thing then is to go into outcomes, which is what I was speaking about earlier on. What is the impact that you're seeking to achieve? Now, I'm not talking about, achieving our strategic direction, because, excuse me, because you will never achieve your vision and mission because they're too high level. But your corporate objectives, you will. So the outcomes from change are going to link back to your vision objectives. But I like to think about impact. I like to think about stakeholder benefit. So the whole thing builds into a cohesive answer for anyone that wants to challenge this. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to anchor what we're going to be doing on Saturday and Sunday, because inside that model are the fundamental processes for your assignment, the fundamental processes that this weekend is built on: strategic analysis, strategic purpose, strategic options, and strategic choice, all embedded in that area. So I think we've reached a natural point in our evening where we can close everything off until tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed the first session. I have got no choice, because of the huge numbers on the program, that I have to talk at you. If we had been in Westminster College, we'd have a lot of workshops and a lot of discussion. I could come into your groups and work with you. But if you've got any questions or anything that you're worried about, please put it into a chat box. and then we can deal with that first thing when you come in tomorrow morning. Good. So, Maura, I think we're good. I think we're good if it's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, okay. So we close off now for tonight. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
So I love to have been with you, but at least we're managing through the pandemic. Thank you so much, everybody. And see you in the morning. Sleep well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prof.
Doctor. Thank you, Prof.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Need to take some
Thank you, Prof.
medication.
Thank you.
Yeah.